news to anybody that at about 2:20 this afternoon, is my understanding, there's going to be some kind of warning that's going to hit a lot of devices. So if you could try to power off cell phones or things, nationally, some kind of message is going to be sent. It's part of, I think, an emergency warning. So I understand that, and I'm not great with technical issues myself, so I'm not going to be angry or fault anybody if anything goes off, because I think this is a new experience for most of us. But I'm just mentioning that because I would not be surprised if at around 2:20 we hear a device go off, and totally understand that won't be for any intentional or inadvertent wrongdoing on anybody's part, but just a product of this situation. So I'm going to be watching the clock, and I do anticipate we'll hear something in the courtroom somewhere or in the building right around then. Attorney Hageman.
Thank you, Judge. Trooper Barry, before we broke for lunch, you were starting to describe for the jurors the areas that you and K-9 Oakley had searched.
Correct.
And those areas included the north side woods of Route 393, is that correct? And then the east side of the power company property, is that correct?
It would be the west side.
Or the west side, I'm sorry, thank you. The patch of woods between Allard Street and Branch Turnpike and Loudon Road,
Correct.
and then Keach Park,
Correct.
and then Alton Woods, the perimeter.
That is correct.
Okay. So after you cleared those locations, what information did you receive that led you to search additional areas?
So at that point, we went back, we did a map study. We were informed by Sergeant Gary Ingham of the New Hampshire State Police K-9 unit, he's our commander, that he had received a ping location of a phone. And this was the first that we had heard of anything on the investigative side. So we plugged it into our maps, looked at it, looked at our map study, realized that this was in an area that had not been touched.
And can you generally describe the area where you had received information that was essentially you're describing as like ping information? What is ping information? Is it?
Yeah, so it's generally the last known spot of the cell phone data. So I'm not really versed on how that is actually a thing. That's just...
And I don't want you to get into things that you don't have personal knowledge about, but is it fair to say that it gives a general location?
Correct. It's a general location that we can go off and begin our search from there.
And what area was that? So if you were going to describe generally, where was that area?
So that area came back between the power lines and north of the utility complex.
I'm going to put up on the screen, which is State's full exhibit, that's 75. Trooper, do you recognize that general area? And if you need to stand up to see it, please feel free to do so.
Yeah, I recognize that.
And can you describe for the jurors, kind of orient them as to what they're looking at?
Yeah, so absolutely. So my initial search was through here to the water area. Then my secondary search is actually it's right off the map, but it's in this general area.
At the bottom of the map?
Correct. The third search was Keach Park, which is also, I believe, off the map.
At the bottom is what you're pointing to?
Correct. And then after we received the ping location, which when we mapped into the GPS was right in the center, right here off of the Marsh Loop Trail.
You're saying in the center of the Marsh Loop Trail generally?
Yeah, just north of this utility complex in this area right there.
Okay, you got a seat. So I think I heard you, but your previous searches, did they include that area that you just pointed out?
No dog had been there that day.
So once you had received this general information as to the location or the ping information that you received, what did you and K9 Oakley do?
So we actually went down to Portsmouth Road. We went to the access road to that water facility. We parked on the roadside, walked through the utility company, walked
And
up
if you
the.
want to stand up and you
Yeah.
can point it out.
So we walked up the access road here, through this complex right here, and I actually entered the woods in this area right here.
So when you're describing the utility type building, it almost looks like it's like almost a gray tint in the middle of the map, in the
Yes.
middle of the Marsh Loop Trail?
Yep.
Okay. And then you're saying that you entered the woods from this vantage point to the left, from the
Correct.
left?
There's actually a clear cut where power lines are actually going to the utility complex, and then we entered through that utility.
Okay. And then I have a couple other photos that I want to show you. So, you just want to.
Absolutely.
No, just two. Okay. So we're 4, 14. Yep. And then we then forgot to this one, so I'll show it to you now. Yep, okay. Sorry, this is a large binder. I just want you to look at one photo for now, but keep the binder up there with you. So this is States 44 for identification. It's image ending in 14. So if you just want to look at
Yeah,
this
absolutely.
image. Take your time. Let me know if you recognize it.
I do recognize this photo.
Okay. And can you describe for me what it is?
So this is actually the trail, the Marsh Loop. This is as you're going up the power lines. I notice the clearing where the power lines actually are, going to the right. It's not in this photo, but that's the general area off to the right is where I entered the woods.
And does it fairly and accurately depict that area?
It does.
Your Honor, asked to strike the identification of 44, specifically image 14.
Any objection?
No. Okay, thank you, Judge.
Exhibit 44, image 14 is full exhibit.
Thank you, Judge. Are we looking at that same image that you have in front of you? So States 44, image 14?
You are.
And I know you started to describe while you were looking at it, but can you describe for the jurors now that they can see what we're looking at in this photograph?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is the initial power lines going north-south. This is east-west. You can see the clearing in there.
To the right?
To the right, as like I stated before, off to the right, you can't see it, but that is where I entered. These power lines actually go to that utility building.
Okay, thank you. So once you and K9 Oakley enter the woods, what do you do?
I give her a search command, and we begin to grid at those coordinates. And it was not more than, I would say, 5 to 10 minutes of actual searching before I noticed a head snap, a change in behavior. She began going to a base of a tree. I was probably 10 to 15 yards away from her at this point. I noticed she got to a pile of what looked like leaves, sticks, thatch at the base of the tree. It was dusk at that time, but I noticed the change in the tail and the change in the body posture. I began to walk closer. As I was coming closer, her head went into the pile. At that point, I was almost up on top of her. She became very tense. I put my hand on her back, and as I looked, I saw what appeared to be the back of a human's skull.
So when you say that you started to notice a change of behavior in Oakley, what is it that you were seeing about her?
Yeah, so initially I saw that head snap, which to me indicates that she is in odor. She ran to the base of this tree and began to investigate. I saw her paw come up and swipe at the actual pile. This isn't what we necessarily train. We do a passive alert. This is more of an active alert. This is something through my training and experience that I have seen when she can't get to actual source. She will paw and try to move things. And that's generally an indication that she is about to give an alert.
And when you say source, what do you mean by that?
So source would be what is generating the odor. So in this case, the human remains is source.
No, they're separate. Do you have any objection? No. I want to show you states 14 and 15, which are currently marked for identification. Look at those, let me know if you recognize them.
I do recognize them.
And generally, what is it?
So that is the thatch, the sticks, the leaves that were piled together, at which Canine Oakley was going into.
Okay, and do those images, do they fairly and accurately depict what you saw that day?
Yeah, like I said before, it was dusk, but that is what I saw.
Okay. Your Honor, I'd ask to strike the identification of 14 and 15.
Any objection? 14 and 15 are both full exhibits.
So up on the screen is states 15. Do you recognize that?
I do.
And what is it?
So that is the pile at which Oakley showed interest at.
And would you stand up and just point it out so it's very clear for the jurors what pile you're talking about?
Yeah, so it's this general area right here. It's tough to see from the photo. You can actually see disturbance where Oakley was. I'm standing a little close to it. I think it's right in here, this area. That's where Oakley was sticking her head underneath the pile, trying to get closer.
And then in the next image,
Yeah, so this is obviously, this is where she was, and she was sticking her head right in here, right underneath that.
okay, and I think that states 14. Can you describe from your vantage point when you were in the woods, were you able to see this?
So I was actually on the opposite side. I was walking north towards her. I could see her down into a pile. But as I approached and I grabbed her, I could see the full of the pile and what appeared to be the back of a human head.
You can have a seat. So about how close were you to that pile when you were able to see what you thought was the back of a human?
So, like as I stated, Oakley was underneath. I had the rear of her harness, so I was over the top of the pile.
Okay, so right on top of the pile when
I
you
was,
saw that?
yeah, obviously standing in this general area, but as I leaned over, yes.
When you got close enough to that pile, what made you believe that it was the top of a human's head?
I noticed black hair. It was obviously not like anything around it. And at that point, I removed Oakley and myself immediately, based on her behavior and what I'd just seen. I believe this to be a crime scene.
And what did you think that you and Oakley had discovered?
Human remains.
Now I want to show you one more photograph. In that binder in front of you, if you can flip back to where there's the next tag. So it states 44, number photo that's number 68. Do you recognize that image?
I do.
And Does it fairly and accurately depict what you saw in the leaf pile that day?
It does.
Your Honor, I'd ask to strike the identification of 44 image 68.
Any objection? No objection. Exhibit 44, image 68 is the full exhibit.
Thank you, Judge. Up on the screen states 44 image 68. Is that the same image that's in front of you?
It is.
And can you describe for the jurors what they're seeing?
So this is what I described as what appeared to be the back of a head. Oakley's head was actually in this area right here, underneath, trying to get to that target source.
And after Oakley communicates in ways that you know based on your training and experience with her that she has discovered an odor, what do you do?
So once I saw her, she became tense, and that almost instantly I saw this. I pulled Oakley off of it, removed myself. I yelled to Sergeant Gary Ingham at the time, and I said, I think I have it. Removed myself. At that point, Concord PD was actually walking up the marsh loop with detectives. So the detectives kind of came in as I left.
And is it fair to say that you and K-9 Oakley then left the crime scene?
Yes, so we actually went to the actual marsh loop, the trailhead at the base, or at the power lines, and we walked down the hill, down back to our cruiser.
Did you have any further involvement in the case after that point?
I did not.
So after you and K-9 Oakley had discovered what you believed to be human remains, you then left the crime scene?
I did.
I have no further questions for you at this time. Defense counsel may have some.
Thank you. Attorney Smith.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm not gonna have that PowerPoint, so give me just a second and make sure that you can see what I put up.
While Attorney Smith is doing this, if at any point counsel need to move or reposition themselves in order to see things, feel free to do that. I want to make sure that, especially if you have the witness as well.
Thank you, Judge.
I'm gonna show you State's Exhibit 75. And I'm not gonna have to re-describe everything that you were searching. And I wanna start at the point that you hear about a ping, okay?
Okay.
So I think that you were on the north side of 393, when you learned about the ping.
No, I was not.
Oh, okay.
No.
Where were you?
I was actually eating.
Okay, well, let's actually talk, did you go back to the staging area to relax?
So we went back to the staging area, and then we decided, while we were waiting, we went to a diner down the road, just to get a quick bite.
So let me back up a little bit about the staging area. So, do you recognize this map and this area to be the Alton Woods buildings?
I do.
And then, the power line comes down, and on the other side of 393, it's sort of an open space meadow?
Yeah, so on this, the staging area is actually the south side of the 393.
Okay, exactly
Yeah.
what I'm getting
Yeah.
to. On this map, as we go a little under halfway between 393 and 9, there is a off-white trail that's actually sort of a gravel road, right?
Correct.
And then there's a circle, if everyone can see, there's a circle before the woods, right?
Correct.
And that's a bigger gravelly area, right?
Correct.
And that was the staging area.
It was.
So that was where people got together, and you got there 8 something in the morning?
9:30.
9:30.
Yep.
Okay, and were people already there while you were there?
They were.
And people had been there for a period of time before you got there, right?
I believe they began staging at 8:39.
Okay. And so you are having lunch when you hear about the ping, and I think that you said, is it Trooper Ingham?
It's Sergeant.
Sergeant
Yep.
Ingham was the one that told you about it, right?
Yes, it was.
But he wasn't necessarily the one that got the ping. Information came to him, he passed it on to you.
Correct.
And you don't know where they got the information of the ping from?
I would believe that they got it from Major Crime.
Okay. And so he's passing this information on to you because he coordinates you.
Correct.
And I believe that you described, first of all, did you start at the Portsmouth Street parking area for March Loop Road?
So we actually started on the access road off of that. So it's not actually Marsh Loop. There's a secondary road that goes in towards the water tank. You can
Okay.
kind of see it on the map.
Yeah, I'm gonna back you up a little bit,
Yep.
because that's where I'm gonna take you. But do you go to the parking area and then go to that access road? Do you think?
So I go from our staging area down towards that area, yes, correct.
So do you follow the trail that goes under the underpass and over?
No, we drove.
Oh, okay. From lunch, you drove right to there?
So that was actually dinner from when we got to receive the ping. We drove down and staged at the base of that utility complex.
When you left the diner, you drove to?
We drove directly there.
Okay. And so then it is a utility road that goes up to the power
It is.
company, right?
Yep.
And then I believe, and I'm trying to, maybe if, could I ask him to step?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I need for this to.
Yeah, of course,
turn to
of course.
Some others.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good night. So you are around the power lines, you actually went around it, I think,
I actually skirted through the left-hand side of that building.
here?
Yep.
Okay. And I think that you said that about halfway into the open area where the power lines leave the north-south power lines and kind of go east-west to the power station.
Correct.
So you don't hit Marsh Loop Trail at all.
I was never on Marsh Loop Trail.
And then you're in about the middle of that cleared area going towards the power line, and you enter and go into the woods.
Correct.
And is it you and who else?
So it's me, Trooper First Class Kevin Devlin, and then Sergeant Gary Ingham,
And Oakley?
and K-9 Oakley.
Okay. And once you find the spot, once Oakley finds what seems to be remains, you come back out and hit Marsh Loop at the entrance of the cleared area?
Yeah, so at that point, the search had concluded. I exited the woods and then actually walked down the Marsh Loop through the power lines.
Okay, so to get this kind of clear, there's the power lines kind of going north and south, not exactly, and then the power lines east and west. And where they merge, is that where?
That's not where I exited. I actually exited a foot trail above where I had located the remains. And
Okay, that's what I'm asking. Did you go from the remains up to Marsh Loop Trail and then walk down?
and then out to the power lines, correct?
Okay, and you said that you, at the time that you were leaving, some police officers from Concord PD were arriving.
Correct.
And where did you run into them?
So they were actually walking up the trail I walked out of, right
So,
at the power lines, entering the woods.
so when you hit the police officer, there were these two clear areas joined?
It was actually a little bit north of that.
Okay,
It
a
was where
little
that-
bit into the woods.
It was where the foot trail goes through the woods.
Okay. So I'm just trying to get an idea. Do you catch them just as they're coming into the woods?
They're actually coming up as I locate, so they're kind of making their way. I'm going up and around them. So I'm removing the dog. I've located what I believe to be human remains, so I'm leaving this to the detectives. They were actually at the clearing when I called it,
Uh-huh.
so then they made their way down. I'm not sure if they took the foot trail or what way, but I know I removed myself and
Uh-huh.
went up and around the foot trail.
Let me get another map that
Okay.
might help us, okay?
Oh, yeah, I want. Yeah, I know. Yes, I told them to expect it. Why disruption? Lots of people, I turn off their stuff.
Let me try this again with this one, sorry. So, maybe I'll set Marsh Loop Trail up a bit for you. Marsh Loop Trail starts at Portsmouth Street parking area,
Okay.
goes along the power line until it reaches that area where the two power line clearings intersect, right?
Correct.
And then it goes into the woods.
Correct.
And then there's a little bit of a ways until you're adjacent to where where Oakley found the bodies.
Correct.
Do you go straight to the trail from where Oakley found the bodies?
Yeah, so I would go directly north and then I went out and over, just clearing myself out.
Out like to the power lines?
Would you mind if I?
Please,
just-
I'm sorry.
So I entered here.
Uh-huh,
So this trail actually goes slightly north.
Uh-huh.
That's where it enters the power lines.
uh-huh.
So after I located the remains, I then came up and then walked down.
Okay. And where were the officers when you saw them that were entering?
So they were actually standing at the entrance, like the actual foot trail.
Okay. And, thank you. Sorry, I think I made it more complicated than it should have been. So you can have a seat. They're waiting at the entrance of the trail. Is somebody with the bodies?
Yes, at that point, TFC Devlin remained pinged, waited.
Okay, so you tell them, go up the trail about so far and you'll find him?
They could see us at that point, and they were, as I called it, starting to walk down.
Okay,
Um,
okay. And then you exchange information and they take over?
Yeah, at that point, we downloaded our GPSs and we stood by for maybe an hour, and then we left.
Okay. Now, I want to talk about your dog,
Absolutely.
Oakley. And Oakley's pretty new to you. Is she your first canine?
She is.
Okay. And so she lives with you.
She does.
Do you do the training where your feeding is actually part of her training, like reward for her training?
Yeah, that is her reward. She's food-based reward.
Okay, so that when you're talking about every day is a training session, essentially she goes out and you have a task for her to do and you feed her as a reward.
Yeah, that generally it's basic obedience.
Uh-huh.
Sit down, take her outside, let her run around. But yes,
And
she works for her food.
instead of getting a bowl of a cup and a half of kibble, she gets hand-fed as a reward for each of the duties that you have her do.
Correct. At this point in her career, it's usually one feeding for an event of things she's successfully done. But yeah,
Okay. Oh, so you've gotten to handfuls or a full bowl?
it'll be usually 2 handfuls. I'll separate it a little bit.
Okay. And I think that you said on direct that she tracks by smell in the air, but she is seeking to find the source on the ground.
Not necessarily. We've run into that with source order being overhead, whether it be in a river pushing thermals and wind above her head. The source is above, so that is actually target. But generally speaking, she can smell it while she's got 4 paws on the ground.
Bad wording on my part. she's not tracking the trail of somebody walking.
No, we were not
She-
tracking.
She is following an odor that is in the air, trying to get closer and closer to its source that turns out to
Correct.
be on the ground.
Correct, yes. So with the initial head snap, that's the behavior change that I was talking about.
Okay, and you talked about it being a smell, that there's decomposition changes after a person dies.
Correct.
Does she alert to blood?
She does.
Okay. And, so the decomposition chemicals that she smells is decomposition of blood, skin, and everything else.
Correct.
And she's really, really good at it, right?
She does well.
And she trains every day, literally, to eat, right?
Correct.
But she does not search for things like propellants,
No,
casings or bullets,
no,
guns,
no,
gunpowder.
nope,
She doesn't search for electronics.
no.
Each dog that is trained in the canine unit has their own area of specialty.
Correct.
Okay. Anything else? There was. Oh, yeah, there's just really quickly something that you said on direct, that by the time you got there, things had escalated to a search. Let me make sure I understand that. What you're saying is there was a report of a missing person,